Hello everyone, thank you for watching. Good morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on where in the world you are and when you're watching this video. But we are visiting a trade show soon. So WISER will be going to Fabtech. It is a metal-oriented trade show around the production and processing of metal. Although to be fair, it's very general in the sense of manufacturing at large. Has a lot of overlap with all of those processes. So a lot of machines there, a lot of software, planning tools, that sort of thing. So we happen to kind of have a lot in common, and our clientele tend to be there as well. So I figured in preparation for that show, we could go over three main metal-oriented use cases that we have. Three shops in specific that I'm thinking of and how they use the system. And it really has a large overlap with manufacturing in general, although these are specific metal shops that process metal. Won't go into their specific names, but locations and exactly what they are doing. If you have interest in the more specificities of it, I think we can share more information on the website and or potentially even get you to visit some of these shops if the folks are willing. Just send a line over, email, sales@WISER Systems, support@WISER Systems, website form, phone call, whatever you want to reach us is fine. So I'm going to go through those three. A primer for those who may be watching the first video and don't recognize this screen, because boy, if you've watched the other ones, you recognize this screen. But essentially, we have built a system in your facility. We put antennas around the facility, every like 75, 80 feet-ish, right? These go up in the ceiling. They self-calibrate, so they don't need to be tuned, aimed, all that good stuff. And then we put tags on items. And so what we've done here is our offices. So the screen you were looking at is the tags that are in our offices. And this is essentially what you would get at the end of a WISER installation period. We would leave you with this. You'd have maps of your facility, you'd have dots on it, right? And the ability to kind of click around. So how do they use this in those three use cases? Well, the main one that we see a lot and is very common across all manufacturing, but this is a site in Chicago, and they are tracking work in process, WIP. So very common, but they're taking these tags, they put it inside the bins or the cases or the bags and the sacks that they are moving through their facility of nuts, bolts, screws, bits and bobs. Basically, they're taking a bunch of little metal parts, sorting, counting, and coding these metals. So these are bins full of, say, bolts, right? And they're gonna take those bolts and they're gonna put them either through like a spin dip operation or a black oxide, and they're gonna coat these. So their whole shop is full of lots of different types of all metal materials. They take these tags, drop it in the bin. And so using our front end application here, they're literally gonna take this and say, all right, tag 9258 is gonna be work order 1234, or shop order 1234, manufacturing order 1234. I mean, whatever nomenclature you wish, but work order 1234. And if I save that, as I've assigned these, off they go into the facility, and then I can forget about it. And then as the expediters come up and say, hey, work order 1234 needs to be moved into sorting because we're sorting that type of bolt today. All right, where is work order 1234? I'm looking through my huge shop, up, work order 1234, enter, there it is. It happens to be the Roomba charging on our wall. So there's a work order 1234 right in the middle of our shop here. And the process for them is pretty much that simple. They assign these at the work order stage, off they go into the shop, they search for it when they need to. So that could be a few times, a few touches per work order. They've got probably around 5,000 work orders that float around the shop at any given time, maybe cycling 10%-ish of that per day. And they're basically, hey, I need to go find that work order to bring it to the next step. And then I need to go find it again to bring it to the next step. And then I put it into buffer storage and I wait for the rest of the orders to come back together, and then I'm gonna ship it. Probably sounds familiar if you're a job shop or used to working under those sort of cellular-based manufacturing principles. were commonly used for whip in that case because it can be difficult to find where things are when it's a multi-stage process with multiple touches. So that's a shop in Chicago, track and whip, very straightforward in the way that they use the system. The second main way that I'm thinking of is a shop, again in Illinois, but they're on the Indiana border of Illinois. And they're not tracking their whip, although they could if they wanted to put more on tags out. They're actually taking the same tags, and instead of putting it on the work order, they're putting it on the gauges that they use in their process, and similar across many different industries. They're basically, to get it past a certain test and quality step, they need to make sure it's still within tolerance, right? So they're going to take those gauges, make sure that the metal is the exact thickness that it needs to be, or the weld is the exact thickness that it needs to be, so it can move from station 1 to station 2. Those gauges float around the shop depending on who needs them, right? So one of the use cases is just simply knowing where those are, right? Gauge 1, 2, 3, 4, or caliper, what, you know, it depends on what you want to call it, but this is caliper 4, 5, 6, 7 in this case, right? So they float around the shop so I can go find that caliper right away, right? And then, well, let's say I have whip as well. You may also want to label this as equipment versus whip, for instance. So this is equipment, it's caliper 4, 5, 6, 7. Great, I can see I have my blue dot here is my caliper floating around in this sea of red. And I see that it's 4, 5, 6, 7. The way they're using it specifically is that the gauges and their calipers all have calibration windows. They need to be calibrated year over year to make sure that what they're measuring is exactly what they're measuring. And so they come up with a list every week or every 2 weeks of things that need to be calibrated. This is a common trend in all manufacturing. In metal, it tends to be gauges, but for electronics, it tends to be test equipment, right? You're probably nodding your head if you're in one of these facilities, but you have a list every week or 2 weeks of what needs to be done. In WISER, we can just manually input, using some of our additional fields here, these dates, right? I could say 2025, August 22nd, 2 days from now. I'm going to put that in. I'm putting it in reverse. You'll see why in just a second, I promise. So I'll say save that. So now we have an additional information here associated to this caliper. Where this comes in handy is you may have like Gauge Track or some other software platform that gives you a list of what you need to go find. Well, now in WISER, because you've input that information, you can actually search by that information. I can say, oh, what's due in 2025? List of calipers. What's due in August of 2025? List of calipers. What's due in September? Oh, nothing. I haven't put anything in September yet, right? But essentially, I can search this way and then locate out on the floor as well. And if you want to get really fancy, all of the fields here are able to be pushed over the API or over database. And so you could link this with another platform that has an API to talk. That can get really fun and also really confusing quickly, but essentially this is an open API system that can run on-premise, so you can have it talk to your MES or ERP or your Gauge Track in this particular case. So for this shop, they've got about 2,000 of these gauges floating around, and then every week or 2 weeks they pull this up and they go find all their gauges. Just saves them a lot of time, a lot of man hours wandering around, right? So completely not on the whip, all on gauges, but it's worth it to have that because you're saving so many man hours of running around finding these things, and then you have the gauges to keep moving the whip forward, right? Third use case is a metal shop. They do stamping, and so they're basically have rolls of sheet metal, putting it through, and they're stamping out parts from it. So they will get a call and say, hey, we need 100 pieces of, you know, this particular part XYZ, right? And so they'll say, okay, go run out and get the tooling for part XYZ. You can think of it like almost like a really expensive metal cookie cutter. And so go find that ridiculously large cookie cutter. And they'll go find it for part XYZ and then bring it on. Every second wasted is money down the drain that they could be making that part and getting it out the door, right? So it just saves man hours and it saves production hours of the ability to go find it right away. So in their case, instead of caliper 4567, this is usually going to have a pretty cryptic name, like PZ002-3, something like that. And then instead of having a date associated to this for tooling, it's usually the customer, right? So, you know, fill in the blank, arbitrary customer 4, you know, has 10 different parts they typically order. So we're going to kind of try to group those by customer, right? So I'm just going to make up a, you know, company 1 field here. So company 1, this is in the PZ series of tooling of the dies, is what they call them usually. And its specific is 002-3. The same methodology to search for the gauges applies here. So instead of it being a gauge, it's just now a die or a bit of tooling for your facility. And let's go ahead and change this as well. I have more groups here. So let's put this in the tooling group. And you'll see that it itself also has a different color. Oh, I made it a disgusting green on accident. So there is PZ002-3, and I can search for it in really the same way. If you know the name, go ahead, right? PZ-002, enter. There it is. But a lot of times when you're at these facilities in practice, you got guys on second shift, you might got guys on third shift, and they don't quite have the nomenclature down. They don't know to put a dash in. They don't know if there's a space. They don't really know. So they need to start typing PZ in here. And then they can see the series of dies, and then they can click the right one. It's just in practice more functional. Or they can start typing in company, right? Company 1, and see the lists that are associated to that company, not even the PZ series. So just different ways to use kind of the built-in search functionalities here. And so that's 3 ways that these metal-oriented shops have used it. Those also overlap with a lot of different manufacturing facilities. So I don't want you to say that, oh, we don't make metal, we can't use it that way. We have a lot of people using it that are more on the electronic side of the house as well. But we will be at Fabtech. If you're interested and you're attending, please stop by our booth, which of course I can't remember the booth number of, but we'll be there, WISER Systems. Also, you just feel free to send a form in, call sales and support at wisersystem.com, and we'll get your questions answered. Like I said earlier in the video, it's likely even if you are analogous to some of these use cases, not only can we demonstrate it for you, we likely can get you to walk through those shops and see them if you're curious. So yeah, just give us a shout. I hope this was helpful. For those that have seen a lot of these other videos, probably nothing groundbreaking and new in this one, but if you're just joining us, hopefully you got something out of this. Basically, WISER presents you with a map of your facility and will give you live dots of wherever you stick one of these, right? You can choose your update rate, so we're talking live. You know, if you want it once a second, great. Once a minute is fine, whatever you want. And you can have thousands and thousands of them per your shop. And that's really, at the end of the day, the product and what it delivers. So hopefully this has proved useful. Go see some of our other videos if your curiosity is piqued. And yeah, we'll leave it there for now. I hope to see you at Fabtech. Thanks.